Welcome to the Quiet Power Podcast. We are back. I had some downtime, like an hour or so, to sit down and just be creative and write. And figured, why not make another episode in and out? Definitely appreciate everyone that's continued to support, but wanted to share my quick thoughts for today. Again, we release the newsletter every Saturday along with the podcast. It's basically the audio form of the newsletter, but during the course of the week, I might just start releasing different episodes depending on how much I start continuing to write and being creative. But yeah, so here it goes. This is called Everything That Is Ending is Finishing. You are not falling apart. I know it feels that way. The thing you built is gone or going. The person you were inside of it is gone too. The version of your life that made sense 6 months ago no longer makes sense. And somewhere in that, you started telling yourself a story about what it means. But that story is wrong. What is happening to you right now is not collapse, it is completion. And there's a difference between those two things that most people never learn to feel. Today, I want to talk about that difference because how you interpret what is ending will determine everything about what comes next. We have been taught to read endings as failures. A relationship ends, and we ask, what went wrong? A career chapter closes, and then we look at all our mistakes. A version of ourselves stop working, and then we treat it like a death instead of a graduation. We have been conditioned to look for the fault in the finish. But what if some things end not because they broke, but because they completed? Think about a season. Summer does not fail into autumn, it finishes. It gives everything it has and then it yields. Not because something went wrong, but because that is the nature of seasons. They are not designed to last forever, they are designed to complete. You are not exempt from this law. The relationship that ended, the identity you wore for a decade that no longer fits, the version of your life that made perfect sense until it suddenly didn't, these things did not fail you. They finished with you. They took you as far as they were built to take you, and then they released you into the next thing. The problem is not the ending. The problem is that nobody taught you how to complete something with dignity instead of dragging it along and not finishing it. Here is what I have come to understand about these cycles. Every real completion has three different movements. There is the ending itself, then there's the in between, then there's the beginning that only becomes visible after you have fully released the thing that ended. Most people rush through the first movement and get stuck in the second because they never learn to trust that the third is coming. The in between is the hardest place to live. You are not who you were. You're not yet who you are becoming. You have to let go of one identity, and the next one has not fully shown itself. That space feels like a loss. It feels like confusion. It can feel like failure if you don't understand what it actually is. But it is not failure. It is the necessary space between one version of your life and the next. Think of it this way: when a chapter ends in a book, the page goes blank before the next chapter ends or the next chapter begins. That blank space is not empty, it is intentional. It is the breath the story takes before it says something new. You are living in that blank space right now. And the mistake most people make is trying to fill it with something, anything, just to avoid the discomfort of not knowing yet. That is something to resist. You have to resist that. The discomfort of the in between is not a signal that something is wrong, it is a signal that the ending was real, that you actually let something go instead of just telling yourself you did while quietly holding on. Because here's the thing about incomplete completions: most people do not fully release what has ended. They leave one foot in it, Then they carry the old identity into the new chapter because letting it go entirely feels too much like admitting it mattered, too much like grief, too much like accepting that a version of their life is genuinely over. But a cycle that is not completed cannot begin again. The seed that never fully dies in the ground never fully grows above it. The inhale that never fully releases never becomes a full exhale. The chapter you refuse to close, the next one from opening clearly. It keeps the next one from opening clearly. Completion requires a full release, not a partial one. Not I've moved on, but I'm still checking on it. One, a real one, where you look at what ended and say, that was real, it mattered, it took me somewhere I needed to go, and it is finished now. That act, that specific act of honest completion, is one of the most powerful things a person can do. Because here's what happens when you complete something fully instead of abandoning it or dragging it forward. You get to keep what it taught you without carrying the weight of what it was. You absorb the lesson without hugging and carrying the story with you. You walk into the next chapter with your hands free instead of full, and your mind free instead of full. And your hands need to be free for what is coming, along with your mind. Whatever is beginning in your life right now, whatever you feel at the edges that has not fully arrived yet, it requires a version of you that is not weighed down by who you were inside of what just ended. That version is available to you, but only after the completion is real. So, here's the question I want to leave you with. What in your life right now are you calling a failure that is actually a completion? What ended that you have been looking at and paying attention to instead of honoring? What chapter closed that you are still living inside of because releasing it fully feels too much like losing something? Name it, not to someone else, but just to yourself. And then say the thing that completions require. That was real. It mattered. It is finished. I am ready for what comes next. So that was pretty much what I wrote for today. Again, appreciate it, man. Share the podcast, like it if you enjoyed everything. I'm gonna keep on just being creative and writing these out, getting my thoughts out, because I'm all about clarity this year in 2026. So if you like what you heard, share it, subscribe. The podcast is available everywhere: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, a lot of other platforms. So you'll see the different options. But yep, this is Quiet Power Podcast. And until next time, see y'all later.